number one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? 292, that's episodes of Sports Card Nation. Today, our conclusion of our conversation with Katlyn Gacesa from Sports Card Couple, also of stand-up displays. And really, you know I say this probably ad nauseum, but it's really true. Really enjoyed conversating with her and learning her perspective on the hobby. And, you know, she's kind of new in the last couple of years, but being a sports fan first. So I always like hearing, you know, different perspectives on the hobby, whether someone's been in it 40 years or just a few, right? It's the same fraternity at the end of the day. So if you didn't hear the first one, go and you want to go back, it's not necessarily a chronological order, but she was on last week, and this is part 2 of our conversation. So with that being said, take a quick 30-second break and be back with Katlyn.
Hobby News Daily is your homepage of the hobby, providing original writing, exclusive gem rate data, a daily morning minute podcast, and some of the best content creators in the hobby. Remember, hobbynewsdaily.com and at Hobby News Daily on social. Happy collecting!
All right, now the conclusion of our great conversation with Katlyn Gacesa on Sports Card Nation. All right, we're talking about shows. We get, I'm not sure when this is going to air. The National may have been completed, or if not, we're right up against it. Talk about the National. I think you went last year. Am I wrong or right?
Yes, I've been the last 2 years. Last year for work and the year before as a collector. So,
yeah. I mean, your thoughts on the National, and now for those that don't, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this too. You work with stand-up displays, which I'm a fan of. I got one. I have a bunch in this room, but I got one kind of right here handy. And Dan and his wife do a great job, and now you're part of that team. Talk about the difference, like going as just a collector and now going as sort of, part of the corporate presence, if you will, working in the industry, kind of wearing both of those hats, the approach, because you can speak to both of those.
Yeah. So we went to the National when it was in Atlantic City, which I know many people have had good, bad experiences, but again, it was close to home for us. It's about 2.5 hours from our house. So we went as collectors for the first time, and it was probably the best experience and the best thing we ever did, because we really understood the heartbeat of the hobby and what it meant to be a collector in the space. So that was really nice to experience. So we really got to understand what is collecting, what's the space like, what are the people like. We met a lot of really good friends there. And then I had started my job at Stand Up Displays about a couple months later, and went to the National last year, fully invested in the corporate space. And we had our own setup, our own display. And it was a very different experience, because you're not just there for the collecting side of things. You're there for the business side. You're there to make relationships, to network, to build a community within the business that you're working for. So it didn't change too much, but I think the dynamic and the way I talk to people kind of changed a little bit, because again, I'm working for an amazing company in the hobby, so I want to be able to grow their business, but also grow our brand too. So now that I've done it for a year, I feel like I've got a good handle of how I'm going to handle it in Cleveland this year, and how we're going to do our experience as not just working for stand-up displays, but also as Sports Card Couple. How are we going to build our brand? How are we going to build our community? We've got so many things already kind of in the woodworks for both sides of the thing. So it's going to be really exciting this year. And a little bit closer to home. So just a little bit closer of a drive for us, which will be helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you mentioned too, with the Atlantic City National, a lot of people bag on the city, Katlyn, but even for me in Syracuse, Central New York, it's just a 5-hour drive, so I don't have to fly. Same thing with Cleveland, about 5 hours. So I'll be driving there. There's something to be said, right? When driving to the National and flying to the National. Obviously, if you're driving, you can bring more stuff, pack more things, have more stuff, at your disposal than taking an airplane where it's like $150 for every bag you check. I'm embellishing that, but it can get costly, and there's even a limit. You can't bring 10 bags even if you wanted to take for them. So it's always a kind of a demographics issue, logistics issue, getting to a show if it's not in driving distance. So I appreciated the Atlantic City National because it allowed me to drive there. I'm going to the show and then going back to my hotel, most likely to, sleep, take a shower, and then, repeat. My wife actually made that trip because she enjoyed the beaches. So, I know the city gets a bad rap, and I know it's not what it used to be, but if you're going to the show is still going to be great. I don't know if we'll get an opportunity for another Atlantic City National, but I never say never. I like to say so. Hopefully, we'll do it again. I know there's other people shaking their head. No, John, I don't like Atlantic City, but to each, right? That's we're entitled to our opinion. So I don't have a problem if it makes its way back, and I'll be there just the same. I appreciated you saying like you're learning how to, balance out like working your brand and just being a collector at the National. I remember, this will be my fifth for as long. As crazy as it sounds, it's only my fifth or sixth for as long as I've been in the hobby. But even that first one, even though everyone told me what it's like, hey man, this is what it's like, that it still can be overwhelming. And the more I go to them each year, you learn how to navigate the terrain, how to economize your time, and make sure if you miss anything, it's very little, and you really cover as much. And the one thing I've learned is, with all your friends in the hobby, unfortunately, you're not going to connect with everyone. But if you can connect with more than not, then that's probably, a win. Rather, it's just a mass of humanity. It's a big show with lots of tables, lots of events. So it's tough to check everything off, but each year I think you get a little better at it. At least I hope I am. And, so I appreciated hearing you say that, because it's exactly how it's been me through the 5 or 6 that I've been to. And it's a great show, right? It has everything the hobby has to offer, from the companies that are important to the hobby upstart companies. You got your breaker section, you got your content, the main stage. Obviously, you have the dealers with their so you're buying and trading. You got your trade nights like this. Everything that epitomizes the hobbies is found there. It's 5 or 6 days. I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby, because you're not going to find. It's the place where you're going to find the most hobbyists at one time, any given day or week. And I know not everyone gets to go, but I always tell people at least try to get to one, see what it's all about. And then it's kind of like tattoos, right? You get one, and then they're addicted, and you want to go to all the nationals, right? And so I try to go every year, and so far since the first one, I have, minus the COVID cancellation, but there wasn't one, so I didn't miss it. It just didn't happen. So it's just a great event. You get to see all the, meet people for the first time, meet people again, connect, and that community, which is, as you spoke of, is so crucial to what we do, and be a boring hobby if we were the only ones doing it, right? So
agreed.
I think so you're a fellow writer with myself on Hobby News Daily. For those that don't know, that's a great website with writers and content and whatnot. Kind of talk about, doing that. And I mean, do you like to write? It's funny. I write for that, Sports Collectors Digest. When I was a younger person in school, English was not my favorite subject. I did not really like writing. It's something I sort of took to maybe later. Maybe I did later. Kind of talk to your thoughts on writing And is it difficult? Is it easy for you? Kind of your approach to writing content.
Yeah, so Danny had approached me earlier this year and said, "Hey, somebody reached out and said they'd be interested. You would be a great person to be part of this group." And I was like, "Sure, I've never really written before, but I'd be interested in giving my perspective." It's so funny because as a kid growing up in like high school, the two things I really hated was reading out loud and writing. And now I do both of them for a living because I also part-time radio DJ as well. So I speak on the radio, but I also write for Hobby News Daily, which is so funny that it's kind of come full circle. And the two things I hated to do now I do kind of part-time as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. When it comes to the individual articles, I kind of speak to what is going on in that season, depending on what's happening. So when I put out my first one, I wanted to make sure everybody knew who we are, what we are, who I am as a collector, who I am going to be as a writer. And then I wanted to focus on things that we really enjoyed as a couple, but also what I really enjoyed. I know my most recent article is going to be out at this point. I'm writing about the MLB MVP buyback program and talking about the top prospects for the MVP, kind of just showcasing, okay, where are they numbers wise? Where are they in the sports betting rankings? And kind of giving collectors a perspective going into the national of what should you prepare for as Topps Chrome comes out? Who are the people you should be saving up those cards for? And I think that's kind of something I'm really passionate about, is just telling collectors like, hey, here's some thoughts and perspectives on certain things that are going on. Here's how I feel about things. And here's how I feel about the national or shows I've been to. And how can you get more out of collecting as a couple? And how can you get more out of collecting as a female collector? And it's been fun to just kind of showcase those ideas and thoughts as we kind of grow as a couple, but also myself grow individually as a business person in the hobby. So it's been a lot of fun. I know sometimes when it gets close to my week, I don't have the best ideas, but sometimes they just kind of come to me. And like a few days before, I'm like, okay, I figured it out. This is what I'm going to write about. And turns out it was a really good article and people really enjoyed it. So that's been a lot of fun. And I'm really excited about this article that's going to come out this week. Well, this week as of recording, but now is out. So
yeah, no doubt. And it's funny hearing you say that. Sometimes when you're trying to think of what you want to write about, it doesn't come to you, and then it just sometimes will just pop in your head, at least for me. And sometimes I think is the best way is when you're not trying to think about it, it'll just hit you. But you mentioned something that I think is important too, is even writing about your experiences, right? Sharing those. I think people appreciate them, and just people I don't think sometimes forget, how we have similar experiences. It takes an article or something to, or maybe even from the female side of things, like to, as a male collector, I don't always realize maybe what, some of the pratfalls or experiences you might have to go through. And it's nice to hear about them, even if they're not that if they're negative, that's not nice, but to be aware that unfortunately, that still happens, and we need to be better as a hobby and as a whole. So I think, sharing experiences are important, especially maybe someone who doesn't get to go to shows or gets out to, maybe they don't have LCSs as much in the area. They kind of look at those writing pieces as a way to be involved still in the hobby. So I think it's an important, and much like you, the younger version of me, Katlyn, would, when it was speech time in English class, I tried to get out of it. I never was able to. My teacher always made me do it. I passed, but I'm sure I didn't get the highest speech grade ever, but was not my thing. And, even writing, like I said. So it's funny as you get older, how things you didn't like, you learn to like them and do a pretty good job of them, where before you want nothing to do with them. And I think that's just maturing. And I think too, when we get older, I've said this before on the show, I think some of that comes from, we're worried about like what everyone's going to think about us, or, and I think when you get a certain age and you're like, hey, I'm me. If you like me, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's awesome too. That's on you. I think you care less. I don't want to say we don't care what people think, but we kind of like we're going to be ourselves. And if that's good enough, great. If it isn't for someone, that's all right too. And I think when you get to that point, that stuff gets easier to do. And I think that's, for me, that's kind of how I got over sort of that hurdle. I think a lot of it was kind of self-imposed, worrying about if people are going to like this, are they going to laugh? Am I going to trip over words during my speech? That sort of thing, you know. And the old ad, I remember my English teacher, you know, he would say, John, people, when you're giving your speech, you know, think of everyone being naked out in front of you. I'm like, that's not going to help me at all. So I don't know why you would say that. Or, you know, I played sports. He would always say, John, just you play in front of 1,000 people on a Friday night for football. You can't give a speech to 25 classmates, you know? And I'm like, no, because they're staring right at me. When I'm playing, I blur all that out. It's a blur. You know, he didn't really get that. So I'd always have to do it. I passed, but I don't think I got the highest speech grade for sure. But it's funny hearing you say that because it really echoes sort of my same experience about, you know, getting up in front. Now, you know, I'm blessed to sometimes be on the main stage at the National and do a podcast for that. If you would have told the younger version of me you were going to do that, I would have thought you were insane. But we just, as we get older, we mature and you know, can do more stuff than our younger versions allow.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
So going back to stand-up displays, talk about kind of your role there, what you do. You know, they're doing very well, as you well know. You know, you see their content all across the hobby, people using them. I have them. I have probably 20 all surrounding me at different places in my office. But kind of talk about your role there, and you know, being a year plus there, kind of what the experience has been like.
Yeah, so about a little over a year and a half ago, Dan was looking for a sales and marketing leader, and I had applied to the job thinking, oh, it would be really cool to be in the space. I had some experience in some sales and marketing as well, and it was really an amazing change of events for me because it was kind of like a change I didn't know I needed, but I really enjoy it because I get to do something that I really love. So as the sales and marketing leader, I work with the main businesses and the heads of businesses in the hobby, giving them custom display stands for shows, events, shops to sell in their shop, because a lot of collectors really enjoy displaying their collection, because you spend so much time and effort looking for those grail cards and those things that you've always wanted, and for them to sit in a box, why would they do that? Why not put it up and display it in your home and showcase it in your office like I have behind me, just kind of all of the stuff kind of hanging out there of all of our favorite memorabilia pieces, which we're slowly growing. So we always like to say, put your collection on display because you worked so hard to get that specific card that you've worked for. So yeah, I've been with them for a little over a year now, and it has been such an amazing experience. We are growing so fast that we've had to make some changes in distribution channels and how we plan things and how we go about things. And it's been a wonderful company to be a part of. And many of you that are listening know Dan and his wife. They've been running the company for 6 years plus years now. And many of you have the display stands, even if you don't know it, in your house from other groups or hobby members. So my job is to just build relationships with businesses in the hobby, market our brand, and grow the brand in general. If it's through having our products in shops, we're in MLB ballparks now, which is really cool with our Major League Baseball licensing, and just kind of continuing to grow the space. So I'm always looking for people to connect with, businesses, hobbyists, enthusiasts, to share more about the product and how you can use them as not just items to display your collection, but also promotional items, give some value to your collectors who are coming to your booth, especially for the national, regional shows, Fanatics Fest, whatever show you're going to do. That's where my forte is, in a sense.
Yeah, awesome. And like I said, as someone who uses them, the quality and of the stand itself speaks for itself. Probably makes your job a little bit easier because the stands are so great. But it's important too because as big as a hobby is, right? Not every man may be aware. What they might see them, like you said, but not know the company, right? You're seeing the brand on the front, but like who makes those? How do I get them? What do they cost? What's the minimum? And I mean, you can order one or you can order 1,000. It's really up to the individual how many they want. And we've seen a lot of if you want to call them copycat companies kind of come out of the woodwork. But like you said, Stand Up's been doing it for 6 years, and they're sort of they're the leader in the space. And I had Dan on the show. We talked about some of the things that come along with being sort of the number one that you have to look out for. But maintaining that presence, and you're doing your part to help advance the company as well. I got one more question for you. This is probably the only time I'm going to put you on the spot here, Katlyn. I don't do it for every guest, but I have what I call a hobby magic wand. It's obviously not real. Be nice if it was, but I give it to the guest, and they get to make kind of one hobby wish. You can be whatever you want. An item you want to get, something you want to see less of in the hobby, something you want to see more of in the hobby. It's your magic wand. What are you gonna, with your one time use of it? What are you using it for?
Oh my goodness! So I feel like just off the cuff, like you're like it's a lot to take in because that's a big responsibility right there. So I would say this is kind of something that has been talked about in the hobby a lot, but not necessarily implemented. So when the whole entire redemption situation came about, that they're like, oh, they're going to be eliminating redemptions and all of that stuff, I feel like the idea of having redemptions for certain items, like they did it with the memorabilia pieces in the Fanatics boxes, and that's really cool. I was so excited about that. But I think having a magic wand and say, okay, we're going to have special redemptions for experiences, like throwing up the first pitch at your favorite game, or being able to go out onto the field for batting practice, or meeting these players in person and getting their autograph in person. Like that is kind of like my magic wand thing, because I know a lot of sports fans really like those experiences, or going to the Philly show for an autograph or something like that. But if you can get people who are sports fans into the hobby by getting them excited about having a chance to win an experience, or be at the All-Star game, or throw out a pitch at a game, like I feel like that could take us to the next level in a sense. And I know with the power of Fanatics and their relationship with the MLB and their upcoming relationships with the NFL and the NBA, I feel like that's where we could take the hobby kind of to a next step. And I'm curious to see if Fanatics Fest will take us to that next level, or if groups and hobby businesses will do that. And I know a lot of people have been getting athletes and other people involved, if it's through their breaking company or through relationships, and that's really helped grow the space as well. So I think sports fans, converting them to hobby enthusiasts, that's one way I feel like that would be really cool to have, because like I'd be ripping more wax if that were the case to try and win throwing out the first pitch at a Phillies game. Like I would do everything possible, or bidding on it on eBay. Like that would grow the space as well, because people would be bidding up these redemptions as well. So I think that's my big picture dream. We've talked about that. I was, as a couple, like, oh man, wouldn't that be so cool to like win an experience kind of thing? So that's what I would use my magic wand for.
I like it. I think we're going to see that. I think we're starting to see that on slowly. I think that'll be ramped up. And as far as throwing the first pitch out at a Phillies game, that might just happen on your own accord if you keep going that you won't need the redemption, hopefully, to make that happen. So,
Big picture is going to put it on my vision board.
Yeah, there you go. And but I like it. I like the answer. Sometimes when I ask that person that, and to each their own, right? They might come across it sort of like, I want to get rid of this, and that. And a lot of times I agree. Like they're right on. You took it on to a positive level, and that's always appreciated. So I definitely thumbs up that answer. I would have probably anyway, but I don't disagree. So very good. Well, I always give the guest, Katlyn, kind of the final word. Get out all your social medias that you want people to have or find you at. Plug anything you need and take your time. Get that information out there for folks listening.
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting stand-up displays or learning more about stand-up displays, you can, visit our website, standupdisplays.co. Go there, check out the website, see what we have available. First-time people who sign up for our email list get a discount code. If you're interested in the wholesale side of things, the best ways to get in contact is by emailing me, my first name, Katlyn, which you can see here on the video, or Katlyn at standupdisplays.co, or message us on Instagram. I'm always checking the Instagram page and reach out to me. We've got great wholesale pricing, around 50% off our MSRP, which is super awesome. So if you're looking to get something in time for a show or for your breaking company, I'd be glad to help. I do all of the design work as well for those. If you're looking to follow Joey and I's journey, at Sports Card Couple on all social media platforms except for Twitter. There's no E in the couple because Twitter's a little bit shorter. But search us on all those platforms. We're always posting about shows that we're going to, things that we're up to. We're headed to the National as well. So if you see us at the National, make sure to tap on my shoulder, say hi. I'll be headed to all the trade nights. I'll be going to a lot of networking events. We're going to a Guardians game the day before the National. We'd love for you to join us. You could check out our social media for that. Otherwise, if you see me at a show or anything else, let me know. Oh, and don't forget, check out Hobby News Daily for all of the amazing articles, and check out my recent article about the MVP buyback program. And I've got some insight there on the top 3 in the AL and the NL, who are going to be the best people to pick up out of Topps Chrome and save their cards so you can get the most bang for your buck and support your local LCSs in return.
Got through that like a champ. You're probably one of the busiest ladies in the hobby. I don't know how you do it, but you do a great job.
I don't know how I do it either.
You do a great job with everything you're doing, Katlyn. You don't need me to tell you, but keep it up. Look forward to meeting you in person at the National, as you said. And I, too, me and Danny Black, who was mentioned during our conversation, we're going to the Guardians game. I believe it's Wednesday night. So not the day before, but the first day of the show. After the show, we'll make our way over to I call them sometimes I'm still guilty of calling them the Indians, but the Guardians game. They're playing the Tigers. So and I know a few other people that are attending either of those first couple of days. So that's the other thing that's great about the National, right? Is enjoy other things that each host city has to offer, whether that be sporting events, restaurants, whatever the case may be. I know even Ryan Nolan goes to concerts if there's a band in town. There's a lot. The show is awesome, and then the day's not over yet. You can do something else as well.
It's a long day, a long week.
Yeah, but fun, and then we count down the days to the next National to do it all over again. Well, Katlyn, thank you for making some time for us again. Continued success and best of luck.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome getting to chat with Katlyn. This was again part 2. So if you caught today's but didn't catch part 1, go back a week and catch that. She's a great half of the Sports Card Couple, but like she said, you can enjoy the hobby with your spouse or partner, and you can enjoy it individually as well. If you're going to the National in Cleveland, go see her. Whether she's walking the floor as a, half of that Sports Card Couple, or with her husband, or she's at the stand-up displays booth. Go say hi. Tell her You heard her on Sports Card Nation, and great person, and I'm sure she'll appreciate that feedback.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Yo and hello everybody, Mike here, baseball collector, and remember that the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.